the tariffs. Also, I assume, or, you're talking a lot about costs, so I assume the tariffs also play into how to build things and make it harder. And what are you seeing on that front?
Yeah, the tariffs absolutely are making it harder across the board. I'd say that like the most immediate impacts have been on the manufacturing sector, actually, as, and not just in the clean energy space, right, where there are any number of often relatively minor components that if you go back to Econ 101 and the idea of comparative advantage, right? There's really no reason for the United States to produce its own like nuts and bolts and screws and wires and small little doodads that go into all kinds of, finished products that it still may make economic sense to have that require sort of more skilled labor that make more sense to manufacture in the United States. And so you've certainly seen rising costs there in the auto sector, in the power sector, in the manufacturing sectors, I think across the board. Obviously, for any project developers that were planning to import a lot of solar components in particular, that adds to their costs. I think you're also seeing some impacts on grid batteries on imports there that are again adding costs to these projects. I think like the sourcing of a lot of the stuff that would be going into clean energy projects is actually often more diverse than people expect, right? Like for wind projects in particular, you get a lot of those components are either made domestically or you're actually getting them from Europe, particularly for offshore wind. So it's not as sort of one-to-one anti-China as I think a lot of folks assume. There is a huge overhang. Like I'm not trying to pretend that there isn't, but it is. It is definitely adding costs. It is definitely adding uncertainty. Once again, the folks who are going to have the hardest time navigating that uncertainty are going to be your smaller players and your smaller developers who don't have huge or your nonprofit developers, right? Who don't have huge balance sheets where they can either try to stockpile a lot of material or sign advance contracts or, price in a certain amount of risk that things will continue to change. They kind of need to know the price that they're going to pay within a reasonable band of uncertainty to know whether they can justify financing building a project or not. And they're the ones who are already having the hardest time and are going to have the hardest time going forward.